All right, let's pull in Michael Burda. He's an economics professor at Humboldt University here in Berlin. Mr. Burda, good to see you. Let me ask you, are German companies beginning to do what the state has failed to accomplish? That is, create a pool of skilled workers.
Well, German industry has always been involved in education. The system in Germany involving apprenticeships has always had active financial participation of companies.
But the state's always been behind that as well.
And the states have been behind that as well. So there's this sort of it's a very Germanic corporatist approach to educating. And it's obvious that industries can see right away where the shoe doesn't fit, where it's time to train more people.
But now they're investing lots of money, like creating their own schools, like we saw in that story. Can companies afford to do that? These are huge outlays.
Absolutely, but that just shows how much these people are worth to companies. So having really well-trained workers in the next 10 years is going to be an issue for a lot of industries, a lot of sectors. And I think that it's very forward-looking of German industry to start taking active participation in that.
You know, this week we've heard U.S. President Obama saying education is his top priority now to get the economy going again. Germany is in a much better place economically right now, but has the government here been neglecting education? Is that what we're seeing now when companies step in and try to create their own skilled workers?
Well, there is a lack of spending and active government participation in the university sector. I think in the OECD league tables, Germany doesn't come off too well, but the counter-argument is they spend a lot of money on the apprenticeship system. So if you want to become a nurse, you don't go to a college like you would in the United States.
Right. This shortage, I guess we've been talking about shortage of skilled workers, that also shows that Germany is failing to attract foreign specialists. I mean, again, the UK, the US are doing what it seems like Germany should have been doing all along.
There's a problem here, and the Germans don't like the idea of discriminating in favor of people who have training, which Canada and Australia have been doing for decades.
But maybe they should.
And absolutely. You see it happening already. I mean, the fact that I got a job in Germany is because the Germans were willing to give me a long-term visa. I came here 17 years ago. So
you're an American.
I'm an American.
Yeah, we have to make sure our folks know that. Right?
It's always possible to make exceptions, but you have to make lots of exceptions.
All right, that's right. You and I both are an exception there. Mr. Burda, stay with us. We're not finished with you just yet. And if you want to know what a labor shortage looks like, why don't you visit a German hospital? The medical field in Germany is struggling to keep hospitals and clinics staffed. Budget cutbacks are part of the problem, and many times there are just simply not enough doctors and nurses available. If you are a physician, this could be a golden age for you. I'm talking about supply and demand here. Freelance doctors say that there has never been a better time to practice medicine. We have more.
It's the end of the night shift for Florian Henschel. He spent the last few days in a hospital in Magdeburg, but now the freelance physician has a few days off at home in Berlin.
Hallo.
His next shift will be somewhere completely different. How did you end up working freelance?
I just sort of slid into it. It was supposed to be a transitional arrangement until I had my own practice. 6 years on, I'm not really looking at having a practice of my own at all anymore. I like working like this.
What are the advantages of that?
Freedom. I don't have to invest in a practice. I'm not responsible for staff. And in contrast to a permanent post in a hospital, I have more freedom. Nobody tells me when and where I have to work. I can choose. I'm truly freelance with all the risks and the side effects.
There are even employment agencies now for doctors seeking work on a temporary basis. For many years, Maren Krusch was employed as an intensive care nurse. When she realized how high demand was for flexible doctors and nurses, she decided to found her own agency. That was 2 years ago. In the beginning, many German hospitals were skeptical of the idea, but the concept has taken off. Berlin Charité Hospital also employs temporary staff. This increasing trend is tempting many German doctors and nurses back from lucrative jobs abroad.
Many nurses have returned to the profession because of this form of working. They have more control over their earnings and time. They choose what they do, when, and where. That makes it attractive. They're freer. They're the ones who decide.
Maren Krusch is visiting an intensive care unit.
Hallo. Ich will dich nicht lange aufhalten. Ja, es ist auch viel zu tun. Ja, okay. Kontrollier noch mal.
She wants to know how the temporary medical staff from her agency are getting on. The agency receives a fee of between 5 and 8% of each employee's wages from the hospital.
Ja, mache ich. Okay, tschüss. Okay, tschüss.
It's good value for hospitals. They only pay net wages, without Social Security contributions. This temporary nurse is replacing a permanent staff member who's sick. She says it's absurd how much more appreciated she's felt since starting work as an agency nurse.
When you're permanently employed, your work often isn't appreciated properly. When you get called in like this, you can do further training because you have more free time. And you're not overburdened on a daily basis. And we're better paid as well.
German hospitals don't publicize the fact that they employ temporary doctors. Small hospitals in particular worry it could scare off patients. But the temporary doctors are a big help for permanent staff. But the constantly changing faces can have its disadvantages.
They have to know where they can find the things they need. They don't know where all the rooms are. They have to keep asking the regular staff, and naturally that disrupts our daily routine a little.
Dr. Henschel is looking for his next post. It could be anywhere in Germany. The agency sends him lists of jobs via email.
A hospital in Saxony needs an assistant doctor. In Schleswig-Holstein, they need a specialist.
Henschel says freelance doctors will never be able to fully make up for staff shortages in the healthcare system, but he says they also benefit patients.
If a hospital has too few doctors, the doctors are always exhausted and overworked. Freelance doctors, on the other hand, are 1, highly qualified, and 2, usually better rested.
Most are also very experienced, with an average of 10 years in the profession.
All right, let's pull in Professor Burda. Again, he's an economics professor at Humboldt University. We just saw that story. Professor Burda, what does that story tell us, the story with freelance doctors and nurses? Is this about a labor force that needs more flexibility? Is that the story here?
The demand for flexibility is there. The hospitals want it. In America, it might be easier to lay off doctors and nurses if things get tough. In Germany, it's very difficult because of job protection laws. So,
which makes a hospital more reluctant to hire a doctor,
exactly,
then, right?
Exactly. So you have the negative reaction at the beginning. So hospitals are interested in this flexible buffer stock of doctors and nurses who can jump in.
I mean, the German economy, we can't really complain about things right now. We've got a graph we want to show folks about unemployment, Germany compared to the rest of the Eurozone. And you can see Spain, unemployment now around 20%. France coming in at 10%. France is pretty on par with the United States. And then we have Germany and the Netherlands. Nice numbers there considering what the rest of Europe is dealing with. How do you explain Germany's good fortune?
Okay. Germany went through a wrenching set of changes in the early 2000 decade. And the fruits of those reforms are finally coming to be seen, and Germany's also done very well trying to give money to companies to prevent them from laying off workers. They call it Kurzarbeit, short-time working.
Right.
And that is sort of tied. Think of a tsunami hitting these companies, and the tsunami is gone, the water is gone. If you can survive that, you're going to be okay.
Is it correct to say that in the future the German labor market is going to have more people doing freelance work? We're going to have fewer people tied to a company, but also fewer people with jobs that have benefits?
I think it's a foregone conclusion. I think it's a necessary part of any labor market to have this flexible margin. The most important question is whether the Germans want to accept it.
Yeah, I guess the market may force them to accept some things as well. Mr. Burda, thank you very much for talking with us today.